Tonight, a rough landing for passengers on a small aircraft that went down shortly after takeoff. New tonight on Our News Live at 7, an eyewitness account of the shocking crash. Police are investigating recent murders in the capital just days into the new year. And the Works Minister gives an update on the status of the Village Road Improvement Project. What you need to know is coming right up. And then in Our News at 7:30, the Bahamas National Trust looking into the environmental impact of a sunken vessel in protected waters. The next step in the assessment. Our News Live at 7 starts now. Welcome to Our News Live at 7. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Candino Knowles. The Aircraft Accident Investigation Authority on the ground in Exuma today after a Piper PA-23 aircraft with 2 people on board crashed shortly after takeoff from the Exuma International Airport. Our Megan Shepard is on the island. She spoke with an eyewitness and filed this report.
A plane crash on the island of Exuma ending with good news after the 2 people on board escaped with their lives. Employee for Westerner and Delta, Anthony Winder, says he was in the middle of a conversation with a pilot when that pilot noticed that the aircraft was flying rather low.
He was like, why is that plane, so low and no landing gear? So when I took a look, they was actually tipping a bit more. And they already passed the landing strip, so it was like, I was trying to figure out what was going on, so we started to notify everybody else, like, hey, that plane looked like it crashed, you know what I mean? We let everybody know, the firefighters, everyone, and then they actually, everybody started working together, and it went from then. We actually found out that, yeah, they actually did crash.
Winder says response time was immediate.
It was actually pretty quick, soon as everybody figured out that this is what actually happened, and even though they wasn't sure, they still was actually checking and trying to go out there and actually see what was, happening. So
he says from what he saw, he believes it was a private aircraft involved in the crash.
I think it was a private plane with 2 persons because it wasn't no sort of commercial airline or anything.
Both passengers were able to exit the aircraft safely. Another airport employee says she witnessed it.
When he came and he sat down, someone walked him, one people walked him and had little conversations with him or whatever, and asked him if everything was okay, and then after that, then he up inside the car and went.
So did he appear at all flustered? Or he was a little shaken, scared?
Sort of, not really, yeah.
But he seemed okay overall?
Yeah, he seemed okay.
The AAIA was dispatched to the island for investigations. Reporting for Our News from the island of Exuma, I'm Megan Shepard.
Now, a man is behind bars tonight accused of committing the first 2 murders of 2023. Prosecutors say 28-year-old Shervin Munnings fatally shot Kevin Andrews and his girlfriend Lorne Taylor around 3:30 a.m. on January 2nd. Police say the couple was asleep at a home in Montel Heights when they were shot dead. Munnings was not required to enter a plea to the murder charges when he appeared before Magistrate Kendra Kelly. He was denied bail and is scheduled to return to court on March 14th for a voluntary bill of indictment. And police investigating 2 separate shootings on Wednesday. In the first incident, 2 teens were shot in the area of Gibbs Corner. We'll get to that in a moment, but for now, a man is behind bars tonight accused of committing the first 2 murders of 2023. Prosecutors say 28-year-old Shervin Munnings fatally shot Kevin Andrews and his girlfriend Lorne Taylor around 3:30 a.m. on January 2nd. Now, police say the couple was asleep, as we told you, at home in Montel Heights when they were shot dead. And now, police, as we said, are investigating 2 separate shootings on Wednesday. In the first incident, 2 teens were shot in the area of Gibbs Corner off East Street around 6:30 p.m. Police were alerted to the shooting by Shot Spotter Technology. 16-year-old resident of Padolio Street was grazed above the eye, and the 15-year-old from Taylor Street was shot in the leg. Both victims were taken to hospital where they were treated and discharged. Meanwhile, just a half hour later, police were called to Pitt Road where a 27-year-old man was shot in the thigh. Reports indicating that the man was in the area of the park in the Rock Crusher area when he reportedly heard gunshots and then realized he had been shot. He was taken to hospital where he was treated and discharged and then arrested in reference to an armed robbery. Also tonight, a distressed vessel in waters off South Abaco spilling corrosive chemicals into the Atlantic. 1 week later, cleanup efforts are still ongoing, and now the Member of Parliament for the area is speaking out. Jamila Mizik reports.
There was no oil or fuel leakage from the MV1 Go Traveler. That's according to Member of Parliament for Central and South Abaco, John Pinder, who says fuel tanks on the vessel were capped off.
The pictures that are circulating on social media that see the slick on top of the water, that's actually the ferrex, which is a corrosive. It's not a toxic substance. It's a corrosive substance used for sewage treatment and so on and so forth. So I went out there personally with the technical crew Tuesday past to put my eyes on it and to see exactly what was going on. And I was pleased to see that there was a full effort on containment and cleanup out there.
Cleanup efforts are ongoing, and Pinder says he's been advised by the technical team that as long as the product doesn't touch the shoreline, there will be no long-term environmental impact.
It is dissolving in the deep waters right there offshore, and it is a product that's made to dissolve in the waters.
As for the environmental impact to marine life,
this is an area that is not only a very busy shipping lane, but it's also a very important fishing grounds. So the government and the shipping company are both taking this as high priority to make sure that these waters aren't damaged for future fishing. There isn't any impact to the environment right now. This can change, but I am optimistic, and I'm hopeful that the ferrex that was carried on board will dissolve without any long-term impact.
The Central and South Abaco MP says he will continue to monitor the process to ensure that the situation is mitigated in the shortest time possible. Reporting for Our News, I'm Jamila Mizik.
And it's time now for your first look at temperatures across the island. Meteorologist Greg Thompson is standing by in the Weather Center. Greg, what are we seeing this weekend? I'm hoping this weather continues. It's looking clear, eh?
Beautiful weather expected for the weekend. Yeah, we do have a frontal boundary that's now moving in, but you wouldn't even notice the frontal boundary. It's pushing into the central Bahamas. We did have some prefrontal activity. We'll show that in our satellite picture, but that generated quite a bit of shower and thunderstorm activity across the Exumas. Outside the studios right now, though, it's comfortable, 78, few clouds. Your winds are out of the north-northeast. That's behind the front now. It's picked up in speed at 12 miles per hour, and your field-like temperature stands at 76. Temperatures around the islands right now, you won't believe it's 69 in Grand Bahama. Yeah, those temperatures will continue to fall. 74 in Marsh Harbour as well as in Alistown, Bimini. We pick up 75 in Great Harbour Key. Over in Governor's Harbour, 77, 76 in Nicholstown. Into the Central Bahamas, 77s in Kemps, 77 actually in Kemps Bay. 78 in Arthurstown, Cat Island, Georgetown, 79, 76 in Coburn Town, San Salvador. Deadman's Key, you are 79 at this hour. 80 in Duncantown, Ragged Island, we pick up a couple of 79s. Colonel Hill, Cricket Island, Delectable Bay, Acklands, Abrahams Bay, and Maguana. Matthew Town, Inagua, 80, and our good neighbors to the southeast, Tricks and Kickers Islands, you are currently 76 at this hour. Satellite view, as I mentioned, a prefrontal trough moved across the central Bahamas. Lots of showers and isolated thunderstorms associated with that early during the day, but by the afternoon, most of that activity waned a bit, and looks as though most of the activity is now gone. Some of it down near the southeast Bahamas. There is also an upper level trough or an upper level low that's spinning over the Dominican Republic, and that is helping to spark a few showers down there. But the frontal boundary just passed New Providence this afternoon, and behind that, very clear skies and very lovely temperatures and conditions expected for the next several days. That's your first look at weather. Stick with us. I'll look at your extended forecast as to come.
Still to come in our news, when will the Village Road project be completed? The minister gives an update. Plus, new details about a project to protect 20% of the onshore marine environment. And with COVID cases rising in some countries, China seeks to minimize the spread of the virus during Chinese New Year's celebrations. We'll tell you all about it when Our News returns. As work continues on Village Road, Works and Utilities Minister Alfred Sears says the project is still on tap to be completed by the end of the month. The project has been the source of much controversy as the improvements have led to issues for businesses and motorists. The completion of the project has been pushed back at least 3 times. Sears saying there have been some supply issues.
That is what the contractor, Mr. Knowles, and he would have spoken to it. There have been some issues, supply issues, in terms of aggregate bitumen by Bahamas, which produces the asphalt. And there have also been a number of issues with some of the utility infrastructure. So the latest briefing I've gotten is that it will be completed this month.
All right, and a project is in the works aimed at protecting 20% of the onshore marine environment as officials from the Bahamas National Trust and the Ministry of Works and Utilities toured the Bonefish Pond today. They revealed that many are using the protected area as a dumping ground. Bethany McDermott reports.
The Bahamas National Trust has formed a partnership with the government and is looking to launch the Jeff project to help improve the infrastructural needs for Bonefish Pond. BNT official says the project will help upkeep and restore areas that have been damaged by heavy dumping. Officials say there is a need for increased security.
As Lakeisha would have mentioned, under the project, the ongoing project, we do plan to increase our security efforts out here. And so we hope that would help to mitigate some of the challenges we face out here on a daily basis.
During a tour of the area today, Roll revealed that locals have been using the area as a dumping ground in recent times. He said things as big as refrigerators were found dumped in the area. BNT Executive Director Lakeisha Anderson Roll says the immediate area is not open for fishing, adding that zoning areas are being considered.
We are actually working with the Nature Conservancy as a part of that project to look at zoning. So we've actually started the conversations with stakeholders here in the Exuma Keys Island Sea Park, which is a no fishing area, but we are looking to zone for different activities like recreation, anchoring, moorings, and etc.
The Jeff project is a 5-year project aimed at helping the country achieve the goal of protecting 20% of the near-shore marine environment and helping with infrastructural improvements. Works and Utilities Minister Alfred Sears speaking to the importance of the area. Now the Works Minister also saying that the area would be perfect for local straw vendors to set up shop.
We bring millions of visitors to our country, and we need to bring them to Bonefish Pond and other retreats and reserves so that they can see the magnificence of this country.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Bethany McDermott.
When our news comes back from the break, we turn our spotlight to stories making headlines across the world as a Turks and Caicos police officer is accused of harboring migrants. Plus, a look back at today in history and the execution of David Mitchell. Also on this day in 2003, Sir Gerald Cash died. We've got that story and more on the other side of the break. This is Our News. Welcome back. We turn our attention now to stories making headlines across the world. China is seeking to minimize the possibility of a new COVID-19 outbreak during this month's Lunar New Year travel rush. The Transportation Ministry on Friday called on travelers to reduce trips and gatherings, particularly if they involve elderly people, pregnant women, small children, and those with underlying conditions. The call stopped short of asking citizens to stay home entirely. More than 2 billion trips are expected to be made during the week-long festival season. U.S. Representative Kevin McCarthy was defeated on a 13th ballot for U.S. House Speaker despite gaining momentum and some holdout votes. He needs more Republican hardliners to flip their support or vote present to lower the threshold. He needs 218 votes to secure the seat. So far, he has managed to flip 15 lawmakers and says he's confident he'll have the votes for the Speaker's gavel. The House can't kick off a new Congress or swear in new members until a Speaker is elected. And Prince Harry revealing personal grief, war experiences during drug use and family rifts in his explosive memoir, from accounts of cocaine use and losing his virginity to raw family rifts. His book, Spare, exposing deeply personal details about Harry and the wider royal family. His story is dominated by his rivalry with elder brother Prince William and the death of his mother, Princess Diana, in 1997. Harry, who was 12 at the time, says he has never forgiven the media for Diana's death in a car crash while being pursued by photographers.
The only issue I kind of have is that the reason why I thought they'd left the royal family and moved is because they wanted privacy, but then this is doing the polar opposite of that, so I'm a bit confused as to if that's what they wanted, why they would then release such a public and what's going to be a really impactful book.
It's hard hearing somebody that's come from that kind of privilege moaning about how difficult their life's been. I mean, he had a tragedy happen to him when he was young, but he's also experienced incredible privilege, how he's grown up, so it's difficult to hear. It sort of feels a little bit whingy.
Meanwhile, U.S. President Joe Biden says the United States will immediately begin turning away Cubans, Haitians, and Nicaraguans who cross the border from Mexico illegally. The new rules expand on an existing effort to stop Venezuelans attempting to enter the U.S., which began in October and led to a dramatic drop in Venezuelans coming to the southern border. It represents a major change to immigration rules that will stand even if the U.S. Supreme Court ends a Trump-era public health law that allows U.S. authorities to turn away asylum seekers.
My message is this: if you're trying to leave Cuba, Nicaragua, or Haiti, or have agreed to begin a journey to America, do not just show up at the border. Stay where you are and apply legally from there. Starting today, if you don't apply through the legal process, you will not be eligible for this new parole program.
And finally, a police officer in the Turks and Caicos Islands was arrested and charged with harboring undocumented migrants as authorities struggle with a recent spike in Haitians migrating to the archipelago. Police Commissioner Trevor Botting declined further comment, but said in a statement that the officer was already on administrative leave in another unidentified matter. Authorities say they found 4 Haitians ranging in ages from 22 to 65 on the property where they arrested the officer. The Haitians were also detained. Still to come in our news, today in history, find out interesting facts about the day that was January 6th and the birth of Bahamian writer, actor, and cultural icon James Candlin on this day in 1940. Plus, Greg is back with your extended weather forecast. And then in our news at 7:30, we speak to a retired deputy commissioner of police who received King's honors. That story when our news continues. Welcome back to our news. It's time now to turn our spotlight on events that shaped the day that was January 6th, including this country's last execution 23 years ago. Take a look. On this day in Bahamian history in 1932, the Daily Tribune reported on the reprieve of then British Prime Minister Winston Churchill, who came to New Providence. Weeks before, Churchill had an accident while in New York on a speaking tour. The paper reported he had come to Nassau to recover his health and strength. 8 years later, in 1940, James Candlin was born in Nassau. Candlin was a writer, actor, producer, and director. Hailed as a Bahamian cultural legend, icon, and warrior, Candlin passed away on August 18, 2018. He was 78 years old. And in 2003, Sir Gerald Christopher Cash, lawyer, politician, former member of Parliament, and former Governor General, died in Nassau. Cash, who suffered a stroke 6 days prior to his death, was 85. His legal and political career spanned almost 50 years, culminating in his service as Governor General from 1979 to 1986. 10 years later, Flamingo Gardens Primary School was renamed in his honor. Also on January 6, 23 years ago, convicted murderer David Mitchell was put to death at Her Majesty's Prison. He was the last man to die under the law for his crimes. While capital punishment is still on the books as the ultimate sentence, it has not been carried out since. Jerome Sawyer reports on the event and before that day.
David Mitchell was put to death early on the morning of January 6, 2000. He was convicted of the 1994 double murder of German couple Horst and Trude Hennings. Prosecutors and police say Mitchell, 20 years old at the time, broke into the couple's Treasure Key Abaco home and stabbed them to death as they slept. Police believed it was a robbery gone bad and claimed to have found him washing blood from his pants. The legal battle to save his life began 4 months earlier, going as far as the Privy Council, in the hopes of having his sentence commuted to life in prison. The victim's family and German government called for clemency. In 1997, a landmark London Privy Council ruling deemed that executing a death row inmate after 5 years is inhumane. Mitchell hit the 5-year threshold in August of 1999. Attempts by his then lawyer, Philip Davis, to get a stay of execution on a constitutional motion were unsuccessful. Mitchell's final appeal before the Privy Council was dismissed on December 14th. In late December of 1999, Mitchell was read his death warrant and preparations began for a double execution on January 6. Convicted murderer and well-known beautician John Higgs was scheduled for hanging the same day. He was convicted of the 1993 murder of his wife Joan. Higgs escaped the gallows by taking his own life the day before his scheduled hanging. He was found with a deep cut to his right wrist. Despite the dramatic turn of events hours before, 27-year-old Mitchell faced the gallows early on the morning of January 6, 2000. Media reports on that day described an eerie silence at the Fox Hill compound. After 7 that morning, a death notice hung from the prison gate confirming the execution. A few hours later, he was buried in the prisoner's section of a nearby graveyard. Mitchell's execution ended a spate of 4 years of hangings after a 12-year hiatus. Reporting for Our News, I'm Jerome Sawyer.
All right, thanks, Jerome. And several Bahamians receiving honors from King Charles III. The awards recognizes the group for their outstanding services and contributions to the country. Retired Deputy Commissioner of Police and now Director of the Financial Intelligence Unit, Emerick Seymour, receiving the King's Police Medal for his service to law enforcement.
The vast majority of my tenure in the force was spent in Grand Bahama. And so I joined the force as a constable and rose all the way to the top. I retired as a deputy commissioner. However, I would have acted as the commissioner of police on 13 different occasions. And so I would have served in every office in the Royal Bahamas Police Force.
Seymour, grateful for the honor, is thanking the Royal Bahamas Police Force and the country for their support over the years.
Never thought in a million years I could have risen to the ranks within the Royal Bahamas Police Force that I did. Never thought. Even as it was happening, I never realized it could have. But it speaks to, hard work, determination.
All right, to watch that story again and for all of today's top stories, visit ournews.bs. That's going to do it for us in News at 7. Joining us now is our Talia Hall. She's got the latest headlines. Talia, I know you spoke with Emerick today in that interview. It was quite an impressive legacy, right?
Yeah.
13 times as acting commissioner.
Correct. Interesting story from him. And, he served in Grand Bahama for many years.
Yeah.
And so, stay tuned.
Now,
we have more coming
Megan
up at 7:30.
Exuma, and, Junkanoo is coming up in just a bit. Are you pulling for anybody?
I'll watch and make that decision later, Ken. Thanks so much, Ken. Well, we are still following the global COVID situation as residents react and why environmentalists are once again sounding their alarm. Tonight on Our News Live at 7:30, should you be concerned about the new COVID variant? And what could it mean for pandemic restrictions? The story straight ahead, and just days into the new year, police are investigating 2 murders committed in just hours of each other. Plus, what is the environmental impact of that sunken vessel in protected waters off Abaco? The Bahamas National Trust weighs in. And it's time to rush for Exuma. As they celebrate Junkanoo tonight, our Megan Shepherd joins us live from the big show in just a moment. Our News Live at 7:30 starts in a moment. Welcome to our news, and thank you for joining us. I'm Natalia Hall. We are following that investigation into the country's latest murders as investigators are sharing details in both incidents. We'll get to the latest on that in just a moment, but now to this. Residents are expressing concern over the possible return of restrictive measures as COVID cases are on the rise. Our Joshua Williams hit the streets today to get reaction.
The new XBB 1.5 variant has COVID cases soaring across the globe. Countries are on high alert and have begun reintroducing restrictions that were in place during the pandemic. Despite the rise in cases worldwide, government has not committed to reintroducing restrictive measures so far. We spoke to residents to find out their position on the issue.
I think if it arises, we will need another lockdown if it arises, because we don't want it to get too out of control for people to start dying again. So I think it would be necessary.
I will not support another lockdown because it's too complicated and it really doesn't help anything. What I would support if more people would go out there and get vaccinated.
If we're not healthy, are we going to be able to work? Are we going to be able to do the things that we want to do? So, of course, I support a lockdown if it becomes necessary.
When asked about their fear of the new COVID variant, residents say they're not afraid, but are still taking precautionary measures.
I'm not afraid of COVID. I mean, it's, we just have to deal with it and manage it as best as we could.
I don't think it needs a lockdown, but they need to take more precaution. We need more precautions, especially these open places. You must wear your mask. When you go to the airport, when you go to the food store, when you go to the pharmacy, when you go to shops, put on your mask. They close in areas.
Reporting for our news, I'm Joshua Williams.
Thanks, Joshua. Now to those homicide investigations. In the latest incident, police telling our news the deadly shooting happened in Nassau Village just after 1 p.m. Reports of that the 29-year-old victim, who was being electronically monitored and on bail for murder, was at his home on Lawson Street when he was approached and shot multiple times by two men who exited a small Japanese car. He was taken to hospital via EMS personnel and died a short time later. Now, police have arrested a 30-year-old Nassau Village man in connection with this matter. He was on bail for murder and being electronically monitored as well. Meanwhile, earlier around 2:30 a.m., a 34-year-old man was at a bar on the corner of Washington Street and Robinson Road where he was approached and shot multiple times by a gunman. The suspect, who was wearing a ski mask and dark clothing, escaped by running in the Montel Heights area. EMS personnel arrived on the scene and confirmed no vital signs of life. Now, police are actively investigating and are appealing to members of the public to contact them at telephone numbers 911, 919, or Crime Stoppers at 328-TIPS. Now, the homicide count stands at 4 for the year. A 61-year-old man accused of stabbing his brother has been remanded to a mental hospital for a fitness to plead assessment. Anthony Harding is accused of stabbing his 58-year-old brother David Harding in the abdomen on January 2nd during a dispute at Salt Pond in Long Island. Magistrate Shaka Seville remanded Harding, who has a history of admissions to the Sandilands Rehabilitation Center, to the facility until March 22nd. Now, depending on the results of the report, Harding will enter pleas to charges of causing grievous harm and assault with a dangerous instrument. Police need your help finding a man they believe held up a Sunlight Cottage business on Thursday. Police say the gunman forced his way into the business just after 7:30 p.m. and demanded cash. The store owner complied and was robbed of an undisclosed amount of cash. Anyone with any information that can help police with their investigation should call 911. 919, the Criminal Investigation Department, at telephone number 502-9991 or Crime Stoppers at 328-TIPS. Well, the Aircraft Accident Investigation Authority has opened an investigation in Exuma after a Piper PA-23 aircraft with 2 people on board crashed shortly after takeoff from the Exuma International Airport. Authorities say the 2 people on board were able to walk away from the crash. Airport employee Anthony Winder was an eyewitness.
He was like, why is that plane, so low and no landing gear? So when I took a look, they was actually dipping a bit more. And they already passed the landing strip, so it was like, I was trying to figure out what was going on. So we started to notify everybody else, hey, that plane looked like it crashed, you know what I mean? We let everybody know, the firefighters, everyone. And then they actually, everybody started working together, and it went from then. We actually found out that, yeah, they actually did crash.
Both passengers were able to exit the aircraft safely. This witness says she witnessed it.
When he came and he sat down, someone walked him, like one two people walked him and had little conversations with him or whatever, and asked him if everything was okay, and then after that, then he up inside the car and went.
So did he appear at all flustered? Or like he was a little shaking, scared?
Sorta, not really, yeah.
But he seemed okay overall?
Yeah, he seemed okay.
We've been enjoying fairly nice conditions in the capital as we head into the weekend. Our meteorologist, Greg Thompson, has the latest live from the Weather Center. Good evening, Greg. Greg, can we expect these lovely temperatures to continue throughout the weekend?
At least the weekend, and then there's another front expected sometime on Wednesday of next week. So we are in a series of fronts coming through and very nice weather expected over the next couple of days. So stay with it. It's going to be very nice. 78 degrees outside our studios right now with a few clouds. Your winds out of the north-northeast at 12 miles per hour, and your feels-like temperature comfortable 76 degrees. Satellite view, prefrontal trough that really had most of the weather associated with it pushed through the central Bahamas earlier today. That front prefrontal trough is now weakening. The front, which is actually moisture starved, we really didn't even notice it passing through. That came through the capital late this afternoon, and behind that, dry air mass and a high-pressure system will be building across us. That's going to be spreading across us as the front exits the area through the weekend, and we're looking for some very nice conditions. A few degrees shaved off of the temperature over the next several days, and of course, as I mentioned, another front expected sometime by Wednesday of next week. That's a quick look at weather. Stick with us. A look at the extended forecast this week.
Still to come on our news, the Bahamas National Trust awaits the all clear to assess the water surrounding a sunken ship in protected Abaco waters. And Junkanoo season continues. Now on the island of Exuma, our Megan Shepherd is live from the action when our news returns. The Bahamas National Trust is troubled by the impact of a chemical spill in waters off Abaco. BNT Executive Director Lakeisha Anderson-Roll says while they're expecting damage, they're waiting for the all clear to go into the water to do an assessment of the protected area. Berthree McDermott reports.
The Bahamas National Trust is expressing concern over the impact a recently sunken ship off the Abacos is having on the local environment and wildlife. Recently, a cargo ship transporting Chimera Ferrex 3, an industrial granulated solid used to treat wastewater treatment, odor control, and fertilizer, sunk off hole in the wall in South Abaco. Bahamas National Trust Executive Director Lakeisha Anderson-Roll says what's especially concerning is that the area is protected.
Our concern really has to do with the fact that it is actually within a protected area, and so we are on standby to provide support for the government with respect to making sure that no physical damage has been done, but we anticipate that that may be the case.
The Cross Harbor Protected Area was established as a protected area since 2015 and was recently expanded back in 2021. South Abaco MP John Pinder III told Our News no fuel from the vessel was spilled. However, the BNT says the chemical and the fuel from the vessel has been observed in the surrounding area since the vessel sank. The BNT says currently it is impacting the pH of the water surrounding the sunken vessel, creating highly acidic conditions. As for the impact on wildlife,
the last update we received, they were containing the chemicals. Obviously, because it's being contained, it hasn't really been spreading to really cause a major impact. But we're really only waiting to see exactly. We're only really waiting to be able to get in the water to see the impacts for ourselves to be able to make that assessment.
Additionally, the BNT says if the ferrex acts as a fertilizer in the seawater, this could lead to harmful conditions.
We are working and speaking with experts in the field of environmental chemistry and toxicology to really determine the impacts of the chemical in salt water.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Berthree McDermott.
Thanks, Berthree. While the Free National Movement is hitting out that the Davis administration is in breach of the law after it received over $232 million from the Central Bank of the Bahamas. Now, currently, the Central Bank Act does not allow for the transfer between the two. In a statement, the Ministry of Finance said the government issuing resources provided by the IMF for a legitimate purpose, as outlined by the IMF in its guidance notes on the treatment and use of the SGRS. These funds were being held in the central bank.
It is a breach of the law. And that is the key issue as to why the opposition is taking the position that it is taking. We are all subject to the law.
Pintard says this raises concerns about possible liquidity issues.
They've given the impression, really, that things are going exceptionally well for them. We have said in earlier press engagements that we don't buy it. We just simply don't buy their story, that they're not believable, because they have sprung on the Bahamian public a series of taxes and fees that, again, was not a part of their budget discussions or subsequent discussions on the management of those various ministries.
When our news comes back from the break, Who in the Morning, a filmmaker and TV director, shares the inspiration behind his new documentary film.
Coach O and the Rebels are on a roll, and we'll take a look at the Bain and Grantstown Health Expo on Our Sports.
And the unmistakable sights and sounds of Junkanoo. Our Megan Shepherd joins us live from Exuma when our news returns. This is Our News. Welcome back. The 2023 New Year's Day Junkanoo Parade on Exuma is set to begin just in a matter of moments. And after a 2-year hiatus, the chairman of the Exuma Junkanoo Committee tells our Megan Shepherd anticipation and excitement is high. Our Megan Shepherd is standing by in Exuma. Megan?
Hey, Italia. I can tell you that the excitement is high here in Georgetown, Exuma. Just a few moments ago, it was raining, but you would never be able to tell as the Georgetown Community Park is quickly filling with people. And as I watch persons continue to trickle in, I can tell you persons are excited to see this parade hit the streets. And Chairman of the Exuma Junkanoo Committee reassuring me of such earlier today, Jermaine McKenzie. He says the numbers may be small, but he's promising me a spectacular show that can rival or probably even beat those that were just on Bay. Take a look.
The guys here in Exuma doing a wonderful job bringing the parade to Georgetown, Exuma. And believe me, y'all will have a great time if you come and experience the people in Exuma and Junkanoo in Exuma. It's just the same way or even better here in Exuma than it is in New Providence.
3 groups will be hitting the parade route.
One is Crusaders, one is Musical Youth, and one is Warriors. The groups are either end of the island, one from the west, one from the east, and one from the middle of the island. And we have like each group have a members of almost 100 people. And it is, it's really good how everybody taking part and how everybody excited to come with you.
And while Bahamians are excited for the return of the most exciting display of culture, McKinsey says a number of tourists are also on island to enjoy.
Boaters is here by the numbers. So the tourists will experience our culture at our hand. So we'll be bringing Junkanoo to the Bahamas and international.
He notes that local vendors will also have an opportunity to enjoy the boost in traffic.
We have a series of almost 8 vendors, and everybody doing what they need to do. We have one who doing the corn salad, one doing chicken drakes, one doing sauce, everything. That's the same experience we have in Providence. We have here in Exuma.
So, and as I mentioned earlier, there was a bit of rain showers. And so that kind of pushed the start time back a little, but the show will go on. And as you heard in that report, there are a number of vendors on premises, so persons can eat and drink and spend some time with loved ones as we wait on the parade to happen. And the parade route is actually right behind me, about 1 mile, 2 miles. 3 laps will take place, and also behind me, an opening ceremony is set to happen in just a matter of moments. The Deputy Prime Minister, Chester Cooper, just pulled up about 5 minutes ago, and also the Minister of Youth, Sports and Culture is on island for the return of Junkanoo on the island of Exuma. I was promised a spectacular show, and so we will be here all night for that parade. And for the details and the results, be sure to tune into Our News Weekend Edition tomorrow at 7:30, reporting live from the island of Exuma. On behalf of my cameraman, Terrence Colbert, and I am Megan Shepard. Back to you, Italia.
All right, Megan, great reporting. Looks and sounds exciting. I wish I was there, but I have lots of fun for me. All right, that was our Megan Shepard reporting live from Exuma. Well, Junkanoo will soon be coming to the big screen with Bahamian indie filmmaker and TV director Philip Wilmanson. And the documentary film produced by the Colored Section is called Who in the Morning and follows Junkanoo on the road to Bay after the 2-year hiatus. Williamson shares his motivation for the film.
Years ago, I wanted to do a documentary just on the Bahamas because you don't get to see a lot of documentaries or anything about the Bahamas. And for me, I'm coming from the Bahamas. I'm like, yeah, Junkanoo this, Junkanoo that. No one in the States, unless you have family from Bahamas or you are from the Bahamas, no one really knows about Junkanoo. They just know Carnival, Mardi Gras, things of that nature. So I said, well, we definitely need to do this as well because it has such a rich history.
Now, this is the second documentary film that's been produced. The first, titled Big Chief, Black Hawk, centers around Mardi Gras, masking Indian tradition. And he says this installment of the series won't be the last.
It has such significance in Black culture, Caribbean culture, African culture, that it needs to be told in a very cool, artsy way. And we decided after we finished Big Chief Black Hawk that this would be our second installment, and we plan on doing more than these two festivals altogether. We want to do different countries all over.
Coach Yolette McPhee-McEwen and her Ole Miss Rebels are on a roll, and the Bain and Grantstown Fun Run is here. Filling in for Marcellus Hall once again is Tage Adderley. Hello, Tage.
Thanks, Italia. Good evening and welcome to Our Sports. I'm Tage Adderley, filling in for Marcellus Hall. Coach Yolette McPhee-McEwen and the Ole Miss Rebels are off to a hot start in the SEC. Plus, the Bain and Grantstown Health Expo is all set for January 14th. And finally, Buddy Hield and DeAndre Ayton are both set to play in the NBA tonight. Let's take a look. Coach Yolette McPhee-McEwen and the Ole Miss Rebels defeated the Vanderbilt Commodores 74-53 last night to win their 7th straight game. At 3-0 in the SEC, they're off to a red-hot start in their conference. They play Texas A&M on Sunday. The Bain and Grantstown Dr. Bernard Nottage 5K Road Race and Health Expo is all set for Saturday, January 14th at 6 a.m. Here's Chairman of the Bain and Grantstown Sporting Committee, Sean Bastian, discussing the event.
A key feature of this event is the Health Expo, where participants will have opportunity to receive free health checkups by certified nurses at the Fleming Street Clinic.
Here's current MP, Mr. Wade Watson, discussing his impact on the community.
I wanted to do something that I believe was important for this community. And one of the things that we came up with was to memorialize Dr. Bernard Nottage for all of the good work that he's done in this constituency.
And finally, in some NBA action, Bahamians Buddy Hield and DeAndre Ayton are both scheduled to play tonight. Hield and the Indiana Pacers will play the Portland Trail Blazers, while DeAndre Ayton and the Phoenix Suns take on the Miami Heat. And that's your look at sports. I'm Tage Adderley. Have an amazing weekend.
And don't go just yet. Your weekend weather planner is still to come. And we speak to a retired deputy police commissioner who received the King's Honor for his contributions to the country. His story is straight ahead when our news continues. This is Our News. Welcome back. It's been a short work week, but boy, are we looking forward to the weekend. Greg, what kind of conditions can we expect?
Conditions conducive to getting outdoors and enjoying it. High pressure is going to be in charge. Temperatures are not going to be as warm as we've been having for the last couple of days. We should see some 70s and some nighttime temperatures in the 60s. All courtesy of a frontal boundary that basically moved through the capital and you didn't even notice it. There was some pre-frontal activity earlier today across the central Bahamas. Showers and thunderstorms affecting the Exumas. I know those guys down there in Exumas. I did speak with the Junkanoo Committee chairman down there, and I did warn him might have 1 or 2 showers, and those showers have since dissipated. The frontal boundary and the pre-frontal trough will continue to push towards the south. High pressure is going to build across us. That's going to provide us with some beautiful weather for the weekend, and we are expecting another front next week Wednesday, so we're looking at several days of very nice weather, the temperatures warming back up by next week. Prefrontal trough across the central Bahamas, that basically washed out and pushed towards the south. Quiet weather across us, and then by Sunday we expect maybe a scattering of a couple isolated showers as some of that southeasterly wind flow as the high slides out brings us some more moisture across the area. But lovely conditions expected this weekend and early part of next week. Boating forecast for the northwest and central Bahamas tonight through tomorrow. Your winds will be out of the northeast at 15 knots, so caution flight posted. They will be gusting high at times. Rip current risk still out there. Sea is 3 to 5 feet. High tide will be at 7:33 tonight for the southeast Bahamas. Caution flight few down there as well. But your winds will be more easterly at 15 knots. Sea is running 3 to 5 feet over open waters. Here's a look now at your national forecast. In your extended forecast, lovely weather expected. As the winds turn more southeasterly, we see some increase in moisture, so precipitation chances will go up. But very nice conditions and very lovely temperatures expected through next week. That's a look at our weather. Have a good evening, everybody.
All right, Greg, you spoke about those lovely conditions, but what I want to know, will you be taking advantage of those nice temperatures this weekend?
I will.
All right, sounds great. Well, King Charles III recognizing several Bahamians for their outstanding service and contributions to nation building. Among the group for 2023 is retired Deputy Commissioner of Police Emerick Seymour, who received the King's Police Medal for his service to law enforcement. Well, I spoke with the retired police chief who reflected on his career and says he's grateful for the honor.
I'm ecstatic, elated. And so the award that I received, I receive it graciously, with the greatest of humility.
That's how retired Deputy Commissioner of Police and Director of the Financial Intelligence Unit, Emerick Seymour, describes the King's honor he recently received from King Charles III. Seymour joined the Royal Bahamas Police Force at the age of 19 in New Providence, but 2 years later he was transferred to Grand Bahama.
The vast majority of my tenure in the force was spent in Grand Bahama. And so I joined the force as a constable and rose all the way to the top. I retired as a deputy commissioner. However, I would have acted as the commissioner of police on 13 different occasions.
Seymour oversaw the construction of the Albert J. Miller Fire Station in Grand Bahama and was the project manager for the Gerald A. Bartlett Complex.
I saw that building from the first block was laid to its completion as the project manager. And that's the first of its kind in the Caribbean region. First of its kind, because where else can you go and have a one-stop shop policing experience?
He was then sent back to New Providence. While he says that transition was a great experience, it was an adjustment for him and his family.
My wife would have, been with me throughout all of this. And so when she heard I got the award, she became emotional because, she remembered all those times when the sacrifice I made.
He's thanking the Bahamian community and police force for their support of what he calls a distinguished career.
Never thought in a million years I could have risen to the ranks within the Royal Bahamas Police Force that I did. Never thought. Even as it was happening, I never realized it could have. But it speaks to, hard work, determination.
All right, great story. And with that, we thank you for joining us for our news tonight. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Natalia Hall. We'll see you tomorrow night. Have a great evening.